So this session is was designed and prepared by the Loss and Damage Youth Coalition coordinators, with whom it was really a great pleasure because they want to share. So we have our coordinators in the room, and also we are going to listen more from them as we go by. So without giving too much of time to wait, I would like to invite our coordinator, Adeline, who is the coordinator of the storytelling working group. She's going to tell us more and share with us what we mean by loss and damage from the frontline community. Adeline, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Ineza. So my name is Adeline Chizuzo, and I coordinate the storytelling in LDYC. So first, I would like to share a video about loss and damage in Rwanda, followed by a video showcasing what is loss and damage. Thank you.
I think that's me going to share the video. Sorry.
Yes, that's sharing.
Yes, maybe we can share.
I was born and raised in Rwanda. During my lifetime, our temperature has increased far more than the global average. This was not driven by us. People in the least developed country, like mine, emit 35 times less carbon than those in high-income countries. Rwandans rely heavily on the land, and we are used to coping with the long rainy season and the challenge of our mountainous landscape. But climate change is making things worse, and we are being pushed beyond our ability to adapt. Rain erodes soil and kill livestock. Land degradation affects the whole community, displacing thousands. My family had a small and cozy home, but like so many others, had to live with just their clothes and bags, forced to move to a communal house. The last period of intense rainfall lasted for 5 months. It destroyed roads and health centers, leading to over 130 deaths. These damages are profound. These losses are irreversible. Climate change disproportionately affects rural girls and women. Daily tasks such as collecting water and cooking wood are made increasingly difficult by droughts and floods that wash away agricultural income, leaving them with nothing. Youth-led climate action can bring these stories of loss and damage that go unseen and unheard to the fore.
We have the power and the knowledge to develop solutions, but we need the right financial support. Our call is for developed countries of the world to listen and to act.
Thank you, Ineza. So the short video was highlighting mainly the loss and damage in Rwanda. So now, Ineza, if you can help and share about loss and damage, the video. Thank you.
The present is already catastrophic. The present is already scary. If we fail to address loss and damage, the future will be much worse. This is loss and damage. It's what happens when climate change intensified disasters like hurricanes, wildfires and floods, and slow-moving catastrophes like droughts and sea level rise lead to a loss of life, culture, biodiversity, territory, and livelihoods. as well as damage to homes, hospitals, schools and roads, which often forces people to flee their homes.
Loss and damage as of this year, 2021, is taking place in every single country in the world, including the rich countries. But the biggest impacts are on poorest people living in the poorest countries in Asia, Africa, and Latin America.
If your island is going underwater, you have to leave. If your farmland is turning into desert, you have to move. And if forest fires are destroying your home, what choice do you have?
Last year, around mid-May, we saw heavy rainfall causing 4 rivers to burst their banks in the western part of the country, causing massive destruction and leaving over 100,000 people displaced.
In the global negotiations on climate change, in the Paris Agreement agreed in 2015, there's an article, Article 8, that says we need to deal with loss and damage. But unfortunately, there hasn't been a single penny paid for loss and damage yet.
And this is a problem, because areas prone to loss and damage are no longer insurable.
Insurance is something that works on probability. When you know that you are definitely going to face climate impacts, insurance doesn't work.
Therefore, money for people to put their lives back together needs to come from somewhere else.
Those who are at the front lines are the least responsible for the climate crisis. I do believe in the polluter pays principle. Fossil fuel companies and the biggest polluting countries, they have the responsibility to provide compensation for loss and damage.
The major fossil fuel companies around the world have known for decades that they were producing a polluting product, and they have suppressed that information and they prevented action. As a result, they've made billions of dollars of profit. Therefore, they are completely liable to be challenged now to pay up for the loss and damage that they have knowingly caused and they have profited from.
Although there is clearly a pressing need to support communities impacted by loss and damage, finance has been blocked, denied, and deemed too expensive by those who have polluted.
The Global North hasn't done anything about loss and damage because it has refused to accept responsibility for the climate crisis. They don't want to pay the bill.
With similar compensation funds already in existence, it is high time to set one up for loss and damage.
We do have an example of compensation for pollution. The major oil companies quite willingly put money into a pot, and if there's an oil spill anywhere, the people who are affected don't have to prove which company caused it. That's the kind of thing that we need for loss and damage from climate change.
The present is already catastrophic. The present is already scary. And if compensation is not given, the future is going to be much worse.
With COP26 rapidly approaching, it's time to put loss and damage firmly on the agenda.
COP26 coming up later this year is a critical event where the issue of loss and damage has to be front and center. Otherwise, the developing countries, particularly the most vulnerable countries, will deem the COP a failure.
The COP will be successful only if a compensation fund is put in place for communities that are facing the impacts of the climate crisis right now.
We have been waiting and waiting for the last 30 years, and we cannot wait any longer.
If we do not address loss and damage, then there is no climate justice.
It's not just what loss and damage is, but what it means. It speaks of the existential threat that the heating of our fragile band of atmosphere represents. It's the signpost of what's to come. The alarm bell that tells us we are running out of road for ignoring it as if it isn't there. We are running out of road for doing nothing proportionate to the scale of the problem. We are running out of road. Taking care of those at the sharp end of this climate change that is happening now, not tomorrow, but now, is urgent and long overdue.
Yes, as you just saw, so what is loss and damage? So loss and damage happens when extreme weather event and slow onset weather event leads to economic and non-economic losses. And who is supposed to pay for loss and damage? Primarily the biggest polluting country and fossil fuels company. One of our main demand last year was to put loss and damage on the COP26 agenda and also provide and funds be provided. Yes, but we still have a long way to go. Thank you. Back to you, Ineza.
Thank you, Adeline. Thank you so much. Now that we have understood what is loss and damage and the kind of stake that is having in the international process, I would like to invite my colleague Niite Keka, who's going to share with us what does this mean to address loss and damage within the international process, and this will be mainly within a perspective of the youth. Hyacinthe, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nessa. I have to share my screen.
Yes, ma'am, I give you permission to share screen.
Okay. 1 minute, please.
It's okay.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, but you can do full screen because we can see all the. Maybe you can go in the slideshow mode. I think that would be easier. Or if you want, I can share the screen for you, if that helps.
Yes, please. Yeah, thank you. Help me with this.
Thank you. Thank you. It's okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, you can go the first slide. Okay, hi everyone. Welcome again to our session. It's so lovely to have you all, and we are so glad to present to you different topics about loss and damage. So from my side, I'm going to present to you about the civil side perspective on the progress of the Warsaw International Mechanism, which in acronym is known as WIM. This is the report commissioned by Practical Action and conducted by the researchers from UCL, University College of London. So this was done by the LDYC took part in analyzing and summarizing the entire report to make it and ranked the progress of the WIM and implementing its mandate. So this was done in order to make it easier for readers and for different people and who cannot understand so well the technical terms to understand how the WIM is progressing. So Inez, I got this to the next slide. So this outline of the key points I will talk about. So the background of the WIM, the methodology of the WIM report. This report I'm going to share with you. Then I will talk about the overall progress, overall participation, overall efforts, how the LDYC graded all these theory, and then I'll end with the recommendation. Next slide, please. Next slide, Inessa. So I'll start with the background of the WIM. From the videos have just watched, we all understood how loss and damage is happening now, how different countries over the world, be the developing and developed countries, we are all experiencing the worst impacts of climate change, which at times does losses and damages. Aden has said so, like they mean the economic effects of climate change, which cannot be, which couldn't be stopped by the mitigation and adaptation approaches. So as all we are onto this, we are experiencing such impacts. In the last 20 years, after developing countries raised the alarm about climate change related loss and damage, since then there have been no proper action on climate change, especially on the ground in vulnerable countries. So that brought different actors and decision makers at COP19 in 2013, where the Warsaw International Mechanism was established. It was established with the mandate to address loss and damage associated with climate change and diverse impacts, including extreme weather events. Example is like flooding, hurricanes, and many others, and also slow onset climatic processes in vulnerable developing countries. All countries, I mean, the entire world is experiencing the climate change, but those from the vulnerable, least developed countries are being hit by the impacts of climate change more than anyone else, yet they have contributed least to it. Next slide. Next slide, Lisa. So at COP21, that was in 2015, then they decided that the WIM would be subjected to the authority of the COP. And there's the conference of the meeting of the parties to the Paris Agreement, known as CMA. And also, since its establishment, it was reviewed twice. That was at the COP22 in 2016 and at COP25. So initially, since its establishment, it was WIM report was guided by a 2-year work plan, and then after in 2017, there was establishment of 5-year rolling work plan, which was developed since then and is still being carried out until the end of this year, 2022. So the main focus in entire review, when we're reviewing, the main focus is on enhancing the action and support. This was raised by the developing countries who are being affected most by the climate change. Next slide. So main roles of WIM, there are 3. While the first one is to increase knowledge and understanding of comprehensive risk management approaches. So the first one, the second one is strengthen dialogue, coordination, and the synergies between relevant actors. And the last one is to enhance action and support, including finance, technology, and capacity building to address loss and damage on the ground in developing countries. Next slide. So in ranking the WIM, the work WIM has been doing, the WIM EXCOM has been doing in relation to 2021 Practical Action Report, LDYC undertook, I've already said this, they undertook the internal process to rank the progress report as to make it more understandable to the audience. So mainly this report builds on the research commissioned by Fatal Action, and it was conducted by the independent researchers from UCL. So to identify the main purpose of this report was to identify both failures and successes of the WIM in the delivery of loss and damage work, especially on the ground in these developed countries, based on the mandate of the WIM. So in assessing whether the goals were met and what efforts have been made, it was taken in consideration how COVID-19 pandemic was affecting people. I think when it started, many people couldn't work, and that was kept in mind when we were evaluating the efforts made by the WIM. So the evaluation mainly focused on three grading approaches. We focused on the efforts, progress, and also participation. So the grading scheme applied was A up to F. A means an excellent. It means that when they get A, they have met the expectations and they exceeded the expectations. So B meant good. C, it just meant that they just met the expectations. Then D meant that they didn't meet the expectations. Then F it was for failing. Next slide, Denise. So one were the overall effort after the research, reading through everything that have been done, have been accomplished since the establishment of the WIM, the overall effort was graded as an F. That means they failed to make an effort to deliver all the activities to meet their mandates. So some of the key points made us give them the F. First of all, mandates and the resulting work plans have been implemented in a very limited way. And also, throughout the report, when they were conducting their research, it was found that the activities mandated by the COP and CMA were carried out more quickly than other activities. So, but even those were able to be made, but there was a significant delay in establishing the expert group in different areas. And many EXCOM activities were carried out by external organizations rather than being conducted by the EXCOM itself. And many overall, the WIM effort has failed to match the scale of the need to address loss and damage on the ground in vulnerable developing countries. That was the main mandate to address it, but they couldn't do it in such a period since the establishment of the WIM. So that means there is a need for them to further and be more ambitious to respond to the needs of the ground. So even though all those we highlighted, but it was found that the main challenge the WIM EXCOM has faced is because they were under-resourced, which made them to not conduct all the activities as it was planned. Next. So for the overall progress, they were given, next slide, Vanessa. Sorry, some technical issues. I think I have to, Inez, are you there? Yeah, for the overall progress, they were given a D, which means they have done something. At least here, WIM has not made sufficient progress on implementing its mandate to address loss and damage, but they were able to take some steps to enhance knowledge and cooperation around loss and damage. They failed to ensure support availability to communities in the vulnerable communities in less developed countries who are being affected by the loss and damages from climate change. Another thing that have been done is they have made some progress in 3 areas. That is slow onset events, and also task force on displacement and comprehensive risk management. That way they have done that. There is some progress. In 2016, DESCOM, with the support of the UNFCCC Secretariat, they wrote a database of organizations that are working on slow onset events. And for now, there is 162 entries, which is something to be noted. They have done something about that. That's why they were given and after doing all those, there are some parts where they couldn't do anything. I can't say everything. For those who will be able to read the entire report, the summary of the entire report, will be able to understand, because they couldn't do the joint technical guide between the non-economic losses and expert group and the task force on displacement. It wasn't done so well. Next slide. So for the participation, they were also given even though they were able to participate in different events about addressing loss and damage, and they were involved in different loss and damage discussions, it was just done. The participation was not inclusive because the participants were from UN agencies and the other international NGOs, but they couldn't include those people from civil societies who are from the developing countries. Those are the ones who I kept mentioning, there are people who are being hit the most by the consequences of climate change, but they were not involved in all the discussions. So that was a failure in participation, because there was no such involvement from the less developed countries. The last one, next slide. So after analyzing all the activity they could accomplish so well, and others which they could not do as it was planned, so it has had some recommendations from the youth in Loss and Damage Youth Coalition. First of all, we would like to make it so understanding that it has to be, we have to know that the work of the WIM is far beyond the work plans of the EXCOM. As I've said, since its establishment, they have created two work plans. But this work of the WIM must go beyond all these work plans. And one more thing, ESCOM must focus more on its work on enhancing action and support. This was raised by developing countries in different when they were reviewing, but ever since it was raised, there's no action being taken, and the support is really limited. One more thing, the WIM needs additional resources to do its work. We have seen that you saw that one of the challenges the WIM faced, which hindered them to do its work so properly, is because they are under-resourced. So there's a critical need to add the resources to them. So one more recommendation, the WIM must be expanded, including by operationalization of the Santiago Network of Loss and Damage, which was established at the COP25 in Madrid. The last recommendation from the youth in loss and damage declaration that the Standing Committee on Finance must also take up work on the finance for loss and damage, responding to requests by the developing countries. Thank you so much. That was summary. If anyone has a question, you are welcome. You can raise it maybe after. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Hyacinthe. And I think everyone, thank you everyone for your kind attention. I will later on share the link for our fully version of the WIM report. But in the meantime, I would just like to invite our colleague Eva, who's going to break us down or what do we mean by loss and damage finance, but more importantly, where does the loss and damage finance stand right now after COP26? So thank you everyone. Eva, the floor is yours.
Hi everyone, my name is Eva Peace Mokairanga and I'm happy to be here. And I'll just also ask Kimeza to share my screen, and I'm struggling with hearing nicely. So I hope it's okay if I can turn off my video while presenting.
I guess it should be fine. Let me find your screen.
Ma'am, I gave him permission to access her presentation.
I hope you can see my screen now.
Yes, thank you. I can see it though.
Thanks.
Hi again, everyone. I'm happy to be here and having this opportunity to talk about finance for loss and damage, which is a critical issue for developing countries, which are the front line of climate change, even though we are contributing the least to the climate crisis. So I'm going to go straight ahead and give a little background on what happened before and during COP26. So at COP25, during the review, thanks, Yasset just gave us a very detailed information on the WIM. So at COP25, during the review of the WIM, developing countries demanded that the WIM be strengthened and enable it to provide action and support to the community at the front line of climate change. So the Santiago Network on loss and damage was established as a key outcome of the review of the WIM at COP25. And they also agreed on its purpose, but there was no function or modalities agreed, and it left the question of what the Santiago Network will do and how it will do it. So ahead of COP26, developing countries called the Santiago Network to be operationalized and go beyond being just a website, and for it to be able to deliver concrete support on the ground. So on the operationalization of the Santiago Network, parties negotiated on the function of the Santiago Network. And there was an agreement of the function of the Santiago Network, which are mostly you can see them on the screen, but it's mostly focused on contributing to the effective implementation of the WIM and catalyzing the technical support assistance helped by the organization, different organization, bodies, networks, and experts, but also to catalyze demand-driven technical assistance from relevant organization again, and able to implement relevant activities that avoid, minimize, and address loss and damage in developing countries. There's also the third function was also to facilitate the consideration of wide range of topics relevant to averting, minimizing, and addressing loss and damage. The fourth one was facilitating and catalyzing collaboration, coordination, and coherence and synergy to accelerate action by organization, bodies, networks, and experts. And so on and so forth. You can read all the function of the Santiago network on different websites. Another important point for developing country was to make sure that the Santiago network is capable for responding to the demand of the community on the ground. And this would require adequate financial, also technical and human resource to do its work. So in the end of COP26, parties were able to agree that the Santiago network will be provided with finance to support technical assistance for the implementation of those activities. Next slide. So in addition to ensuring that a robust Santiago network, which is fit for its purpose, developing countries also called for the mobilization of finance for loss and damage. Hence, there was a proposal from the G77 to have a Glasgow loss and damage facility. The proposal was submitted at the end, during the end of COP, but it was never included in the final decision. And ahead of COP, this was one of the big expectations of vulnerable countries to be able to have a Glasgow loss and damage facility. And one of the research conducted shows that the economic costs of loss and damage in developing countries is between $290 billion to $580 billion a year by 2030. He's providing finance at the scale of the needs in vulnerable developing countries is very important. And this should be taken as a NICO part that complements mitigation and adaptation actions, and loss and damage to be considered as a third arm within the UNFCCC. And this will require for mobilizing trillions a year for when it comes to finance as a whole, climate finance. We hope to see mobilization of trillions. So to push for an agreement on loss and damage finance, the Scottish government committed like £2 million for loss and damage, the first ever money specific for loss and damage. They were also supported by different philanthropies during the end of the COP that also contributed $3 million US dollars. So this increased the focus on finance for loss and damage and put the pressure on other developed countries to follow the lead. But developed countries blocked the establishment of the Glasgow loss and damage facility. And instead, there was the Glasgow dialogue, which was established as a weak compromise. So the Glasgow dialogue has the purpose to serve as a platform for different stakeholders to discuss funding for loss and damage activities. And it was agreed that the dialogue will take place each year during the SP sessions and to conclude in June 2024. Next. So what are the next steps for loss and damage finance? There is the Glasgow dialogue for loss and damage finance. And the question remains if there will be any meaningful outcome for the Glasgow dialogue. We hope so, at least. So it is important that the Glasgow dialogue be a robust and inclusive discussions on the needs of developing countries, and it's result-oriented by having a concrete outcome of the establishment of a finance facility. And this financial facility we hope to be established during COP27. So there's also much needed research on the best modalities of how the Santiago network or on how the Santiago network will operate, or also on the modalities of the finance facility, what will be its institutional arrangement, how best it can work. It's also important that the dialogue focus on the source of funding, where it will come from, who will provide the funding, and also ensuring that there is accountability And next will be the Santiago Network for Loss and Damage Finance. They also hope that that finance provided to ensure that the operation of the Santiago network is not the only finance provided. We hope to have finance for loss and damage that will reach people on the ground, and that the Santiago network also is able to provide countries to do loss and damage assessment and implement measures coming from those assessment measures to address different impacts of climate change. And there's also a third part, including loss and damage in the finance discussion. In 2009, developed countries agreed to provide $100 billion to developing countries. And that was just a number, which was not evidence-based without any research, was much more political commitment made by developed countries. So, but new discussion have started for the new collective quantified goal that will press the 100 billion goal in 2025. So discussion have started, and there is room to include finance for loss and damage within the scope of the new goal. For the 100 billion goal, it used to be just mitigation and adaptation, but now loss and damage had gained room, and there is able to advocate for loss and damage to be included within the scope of the new goal. And also the new collective quantified goal to be a number that is based from research or different reports that comes from the needs of developing countries. We already saw that there is an estimate of between 580 billion. So we need a number that will be able to cover loss and damage, mitigation, but also adaptations, which are all important. So thank you for your attention. I think that'll be it.
Thank you. Look at me. I was speaking. My mic was off. I was saying that I was thanking you, Eva, for taking us through understanding what is the loss and damage finance stage, especially after COP26, and it was really a privilege to see a kind of what are the thought of what we want to see happening at COP27. And then I think the next session for our session was to go into breakout rooms, but depending on the number of people we have, I think we can only have one breakout room, which will be this one. So we are going to use a Jamboard link, and we are going to answer 3 questions. So technically, we're going to learn or like brainstorm. Just give me a second. I'm just trying to find the screen. So we're going to answer 4 questions. The first will be what kind of advocacy message that we want to see toward COP27, and how to indicate the need for action, because we also understood that loss and damage need to be addressed by concrete action on the ground. So what can we do? And the third question is how can we emerge new collaboration? Because what we believe into, especially in LDYC, is that there is an opportunity of acting together. And then what kind of actors are we needing on the road toward COP27? So I'm going to share the link. I'm going to share the link of the Jamboard in the chat, and then you can tell me if you have access. It will be open for everyone. If you can't, please, you can use the chat, and then we'll try to see. In the meantime, I'm going to share my screen so that you can see what others are doing. And then we'll be having color codes on advocacy side, on how to indicate action, and on collaboration, and also what kind of actors do we need. But before we go into that one, I would just like to open the floor in case there's a question or comment or any feedback from the participant. Thank you. Okay, so I guess then we don't have a question. We're going to take like 7 minutes. I'm going to play one song. Then we're going to brainstorm, thinking on what kind of message do you want to see toward COP27. And to just add a comment, you can go into on the left side. There's a page where a tab where there's a I hope you can see my screen here. So you can add a sticky note and then you can tap into, and then you can save. And once you save, it's able to be available for everyone. So anyone has a question with how the Jamboard works? If not, I'm going to play one song, and then I hope everyone can really participate. Any idea or any kind of information you can share, it would be very useful. Thank you, everyone.
That way. Don't make me move that way. Me, I know one sleep for highway. Before you cross gas and look at your sideways. Me, I know come look us for child's play. So I said that they find me. For a long time, I've been silent. I don't run down, I've been studying. But they think say I'm hiding. Cause they don't know how to find me. I know somebody way. 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 Coming to you. Coming to you. Well, if you say you be just for your pockets. If you only fight for your pockets, for your pockets. October 2020, something happened with the government. That is so we forget for where for somebody. I tell ya, I know they move that way. I know they move that way. Don't make me move that way. No, I'm not feeling that way. Progress, guys, look at my sideways. Yeah, I know, come live this bitch ass bed. Give me time, but we can't. How you want time, they can tell me. If you need speed, I can spare me. Like a rival, I can spare me. Oh, now, can you share me? I'll be on somebody. 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 And I've been living fast life, but I see it in slow. Oh no, and you see my lifestyle, I got G's in the tub. See many people there outside with the beat and so. Oh no, I mean I stand the defender like Joseph you. My girl say she want Netflix and chill, so I just get even money. If you fall in love, girl, it's satin. You go to breakfast, I'm not capping. And you see people, I'm not catching. I'm not faking this, no fugazi. You see these feelings, I'm not catching. I'm not quest and feet, I just want it. Happiness. If I broke, now my business. I'ma show you go right. All I get for the night. If I broke, now my business. I know you go back. All I get for the night. FNESS be the reason why your lover want to jealous me. If you want to take I'm serious, I do top speed. No fit to resonate, I'm on a different frequency. I don't think it's necessary. I'll be done with just somebody that could do like me. Man, I be like Musala coming off the right wing. I got to your defender, you no need to tell me. I'm finesse. You know, tell me I must not. I will carry go. If me I got money past you, if you're not careful, finesse. You know, tell me I must not. I will carry go. If me I got money past you, if you're not careful, yes, if I broke down my business, I'ma show you go right. All I get for the night. If I broke down my business, all I got you go back. All I get for the night is happiness. If I broke down my business, I'ma show you go right. All I get for the night happiness. If I broke down my business, all I got you go back. All I get for the night. My fair tell me some more. My fair tell me some more.
Thank you everyone for contributing. I just realized the 5 minutes is over. Maybe we can give another 2. And then I will be happy to read through the suggested feedback as we'll be closing our session. Thank you.